when I'm not being extremely thankful to Amazon Prime Day for getting me a killer deal on adult 3-pack bibs, I like to answer questions that I get on YouTube. So let's have at it. So actually, for the Salty Blues comment of the week, I'm going to throw you to my good friend Michelle, aka Guitar Goddess's channel, because she was gracious enough to have me on her channel to help her read a bunch of her salty comments that she gets, and it is absolutely worth watching. So that's going to be the top link in this, because you need to go see it. And I gotta say, it was one of those nights where I just felt like I was absolutely on fire as far as commentary goes. So please check that out. Sadly, some of the better comments were edited due to vulgarity. So hopefully somewhere on the dark web there's an unedited version of that night, because it's pretty awesome. But definitely check that out for some saltiness. Why do I never see acoustic guitars with a maple fretboard neck? So, like, Telecaster has a maple fretboard and neck, and you're right, not a ton of acoustic guitars out there have them. Usually, they're like rosewood, mahogany neck, something like that. But really, and as near as I can tell, I'm not a master luthier or anything, there's no reason that there aren't more maple necks on acoustic guitars. I think it's just like a tradition, and they don't sell that much. I've kind of worked or been around a couple guitar shops, and there have been acoustic guitars with maple necks, but they just never sell. They just sit there forever, and nobody really gets them for whatever reason. I mean, they do kind of yield a brighter tone, which on an acoustic guitar, some of the wood choices already have it bright enough, so maybe there's kind of like something to that. But I think a lot of it is just kind of like an aesthetic thing and a tradition thing. Not that I haven't seen really beautiful acoustic guitars with maple necks fretboards, but yeah, from what I can tell, there's no actual practical reason why you don't see them out there. I think it's just, you know, just kind of the mystique of the rosewood fingerboard acoustic guitar that kind of has people go more towards that direction. Hey Sean, who's your favorite Beatle? So the contrarian in me desperately wants to say Ringo, but I think if I'm being honest, Paul is my favorite Beatle. As I'm interested to hear your guys' take on this, because I kind of feel like Paul has got to be like 60% of people's favorite Beatles. And again, not being there, I feel like if I lived during the time of the Beatles' heyday, maybe John would be my favorite. But with the luxury of hindsight and the modern day, I kind of feel like Paul is the obvious answer. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, all four Beatles. There's no wrong answer. It's just I'm kind of a Paul guy, I suppose. Hey Sean, how do you feel about Jack Johnson? I always thought he was an awesome riff and songwriter, and he mastered the chill beach acoustic style. So Jack Johnson is what I think the perfect example of the evolution of how you feel about an artist that you find early before anybody else that gets super popular, so you spitefully go against that artist for no fault of that artist's own. I remember like freshman year of college, I was so all about Jack Johnson, it was like crazy. I was a big Ben Harper fan at the time, and that got me into Jack Johnson. Again, a little bit ahead of the curve, like a month ahead of the curve. Like I thought it was so cool because I was listening to Jack Johnson early. So I absolutely loved him. I think he was a huge influence on me as a guitar player, especially acoustic rhythmically, because his riff writing, especially on the first two albums, is like really awesome. You know, I think he's like a fantastic player. Again, Jimi Hendrix inspired in a way that doesn't really sound like Hendrix, which is something that I can kind of like relate to, and I think is really prevalent in his playing. But then after On and On, I think once In Between Dreams came out, and like all these like pockets of girlfriends just got to like listening to nothing but In Between Dreams, and you would hear it at every single party you'd ever go to, I just kind of turned on him. I'm not proud of that. But On and On specifically, I think was probably one of my most listened to albums ever. I just listened to that thing top to bottom. I actually bought the CD twice because the first one got like worn out or something. But I also do remember a friend of mine came in when I was like introducing him to Jack Johnson in my car at the time. I was like, check this out, it's pretty cool, right? And he goes, this sounds like something old people would listen to. So that was my first inkling of maybe this music isn't as cool as I thought it was, which again is a totally stupid way to go about it. Curious George soundtrack, another thing probably worth mentioning. I kind of feel like that was like not a way to gain a lot of cool points. Like once the Curious George soundtrack kind of hit, I was a little bit out on it. That and also Banana Pancakes. I swear to God, I've had to teach people how to play Banana Pancakes like hundreds of times. Every time I hear it, I kind of want to like just stab my eyeballs out with like a fork, something like that. But aside from that, I'm a huge Jack Johnson fan. Love the guy. Specifically those first 2 albums. Again, On and On, love it. Check it out if you haven't. Brushfire Fairy Tales, also a really good album too if you haven't checked that out. But yeah, maybe just cut it off right there. When do you usually shoot your QA videos until when it's best to submit a question if you want to get the answer on the next episode? So there's really no rhyme or reason to when I shoot these. Sometimes it's the night before, sometimes it's the morning as I'm frantically trying to post this out before I have to go do something else, as is the case right now. I would say the best way to get your question on a QA vid is to ask it in the previous week's QA, because that's usually what I look through right before I'm trying to like make questions for the next one. So I would say that's the best one. I mean, I definitely read all the comments, but sometimes when I'm like cultivating them, like taking screenshots or however I end up kind of saving them, the best place to do it is probably the previous week's QA. Question, how do you feel about vinyl picks? Used to use the traditional plastic, tried the vinyl 60s, and I'll never use anything else. You know, I'm really just kind of all about those gator grip style textures. So that's kind of like the only picks that I use. But you know, in a pinch, I just kind of use whatever. I'm not like super picky about what I use if I can't find what I normally have. Like, I kind of admire the guitarist who always has a guitar pick in their pocket, like no matter what. Like I've run into a lot of those guys where it's like, oh, you got a pick, and they always have a pick, regardless of if they've been like planning on playing guitar somewhere or not. I do not have the foresight at all to be able to carry like my own pick with me. But if I'm in this room, I generally use the same thing. Otherwise, if I'm out in the world, it's just whatever I can grab goes. Hey Sean, I enjoy your videos. Have you heard of Julien Baker? And if so, what are your thoughts on her? I discovered her recently and totally fell in love with her and her music. She's absolutely fantastic. If you don't know her, I'd highly recommend to give her a listen. Thank you. Yeah, so Julien Baker is kind of this newish singer-songwriter that is kind of starting to get a bit of a following. Definitely very cool, spaced, minimal electric guitar with some thoughtful songwriting. A little sad, a little mopey, but she absolutely pulls it off and kind of crushes it, if that's kind of your thing. So yeah, I definitely have listened to Julien Baker's stuff. I like it, it's cool. Definitely have to be in the mood for it. But for listening homework, I will definitely link you to some of that. And hey, if you're feeling it, go check it out. And as always, hit me up with any questions or comments in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website, and I will get to you all soon. Thanks a lot.